Hello, Christine. Thank you so much for joining Faces of Impact.
Thank you.
And I would like to know more about you and what led you to the work that you're doing today.
Thank you, Artem. Thanks for welcoming me here. Such a pleasure to finally meet you after
Yes.
months and months of emailing.
Yeah.
So, what brought me here? There's been a few reasons. Actually, as I mentioned earlier to you, I have a special relationship with Singapore. So, maybe I'll start with that. The first time I came to Singapore, actually, I was 15 years old, and it was to play football in a competitive regional tournament. And at the time, I was living in Manila, in the Philippines. And it was such a contrast to the country that I knew growing up. You know, I was impressed by Singapore's modern and clean cities, and had a wonderful time when I was here. And I swore then and then that I would find a way to live and work here one day. So fast forward many years, after my high school in the Philippines, I went to university in Japan, started my career in Japan. So I spent 6 years in Japan, 4 years at university, and two with my first job, which was in advertising. And I worked with multiple blue chip clients, some of the big foreign companies in Japan, including Nike. Nike was one of our clients. And so through that connection, then I moved to the United States and started working for Nike at their world headquarters in Oregon. And had an international marketing role, very much a dream come true for me who loved sports. And I ended up working in football, my sport, and then spent time in Latin America, in Europe, and then came to Singapore many years ago, almost 20 years ago, when there was a job opportunity for me. So it's been kind of a long, circle with me getting to Singapore. But Singapore was always on the cards for me, I feel. And I feel a deep connection to this country. I suppose my mom also, who's Filipina, has some Chinese roots. There's also that connection. But there's something that has always drawn me to come here. So this is how I arrived here. And from then on, my career shifted and I got into some of the meaningful work that I do today.
Could you tell a little bit more about that work?
Of course. So, as I said, my passion has always been sports and adventure. But if I backtrack a little bit, growing up in the Philippines opened my eyes early on to the great inequality that existed in a country like the Philippines, a developing country. You know, I was aware very early on that I was one of the lucky ones. I had a good home, a roof over my head, a good school to go to. But I saw that maybe, 90%, more than 95% of my countrymen didn't have the privileges that I had. And I didn't know what to do about it. I was a very sensitive child. I also saw that the Philippines was impacted very heavily by changing weather. We have volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, we have floods, all these things that we don't really have in Singapore. We're much more vulnerable because we're on the Pacific Rim of Fire, so a lot of tectonic plate movements. So I didn't really know what to do about that. It was later on that when I came to Singapore with my career in sports, that I was at a point in my life I was very happy. I was happily remarried for a second time. I had just given birth to my fourth baby.
Oh, wow.
So four
Good.
healthy children, very blessed, very much grateful for, what I had in my life. But I was also looking for more meaning and purpose. And I was, like many people do, sometimes you come to a point in your life and you think, is this it? Is there more to it? And at that time, I started doing a lot of hiking because I had been married for 10 years and then went through a divorce. And during that time, I reconnected with nature and the mountains. I'd spent a lot of time in the mountains. I read a book called Into Thin Air by John Krakauer about the disaster on Everest in 1996. I don't know if you've heard about this book. There was a movie made called Everest about it, which is quite famous. And so I had this curiosity about spending more time in the Himalayas, in the mountains. And about that time, I met a really interesting woman in Singapore, a French mountaineer, who was about to climb Everest. And meeting her really impacted me because I first of all, I knew what she was going to do was quite dangerous. It's not just trekking to Everest Base Camp. We're talking about summiting the tallest mountain in the world, which comes with many risks. And she was a mom as well at the time. And so I followed her climb. And on the summit of Everest, she unfolded a banner that said, "Bearing the flag for women everywhere," in support of a beautiful charity called Women for Women International that supports women survivors of war. And that act of courage and bravery really touched me deeply. It really resonated with me at that point in my life. And I knew that I wanted to support this. So I left Nike and took a leap of faith, if you will, and started with Valérie a nonprofit called Women on a Mission with another partner called Karine Moj, who was also living in Singapore. And we decided to take all-female teams on expeditions around the world as a way to raise awareness and funds for women impacted by violence and abuse. And by that, I mean women survivors of war, women survivors of domestic abuse, human trafficking, and other forms of violence. And we've been doing this for 13 years now as volunteers.
Congratulations.
It's been wonderful, connecting with women from around the world, getting to know the work of the charities, discovering new places. And we hope to do this for many more years. And in fact, as through that work, I discovered that I wanted to do more in the environmental space as well, because I saw the pollution of the ocean, the plastic pollution in the mountains. And I understood through my research after that women were not just impacted by violence and economic crisis, but also climate change, and especially in Asia and other parts of Africa. In developing countries, when men go to the cities to look for work, women are often left to tend to the crops and to the herds. And so they are really experiencing climate change. And so that's why I started my second NGO called Her Planet Earth, which is a sister NGO, also taking women on expeditions, but to raise funds for environmental programs that help women on the ground.
And work worldwide, or you focus in a specific region?
So the funds that we raise go primarily to Africa and Asia, where I feel there's the greatest need, and also because we're positioned in Asia. So a lot of the times we look for programs that are not too far from us that we can fund. But the expeditions take women, from the Arctic to the Antarctic, to deserts in Iran and Middle East. We've climbed mountains all over the world, in the Himalayas, in Mongolia, in Central Asia. Just came back from a couple of weeks ago to the Philippines, where we went to the northern part called the Cordilleras region, and we raised funds for Conservation International in the Philippines, agricultural program. So it's been really an adventure all along, 25 expeditions now, 200 plus women through the two NGOs, and has been a beautiful journey for me. It's completely changed my life and opened up many other opportunities for me.
And you always go on those expeditions with them, or you more behind the scenes?
Almost always I accompany. I think I've only not been on one or two where one of my co-founders was able to go instead of me. But I'm very hands-on with the organization, with the tour operators, with curating the charity program that we're supporting. Just before coming to this interview, I was reviewing a press release for our next expedition to South Africa. I'm taking 12 women to the Drakensberg mountain range in South Africa, 100 kilometers between 2,000 to 3,000 meters, to support the Black Mambas, which are the world's first all-female rangers team. Maybe you should interview one of them, actually, for Faces of Impact. I think that'd be an amazing story to hear.
That would be interesting. And this expedition that you normally take, do you always have set number of people? It should be 10, 15, or as you say, because like hundreds of people, or you can do very large numbers?
Yes. So I prefer to keep the team a little bit small, between maybe 8 to 16 maximum. So it's a range. I find that the sweet spot is around 12 because of the logistics involved. So we're traveling with, tour operators, guides, and all that. And just having the bonding take place, I noticed that number works best, because when I recruit a team, first of all, I look for diversity. The ages can range from, 18 to 65 years old. There's different fitness levels as well. So depending on the expedition, if it's biking, horseback riding, or stand-up paddleboarding, there are different skills required. And so we have diversity, different age groups, backgrounds, from CEOs to stay-at-home moms, consultants, all sorts. I try to have more Asians as well as, Caucasian. So I find it very easy to recruit Caucasian. I have to try a little bit harder to bring in Asian, who are a little bit more shy about the expeditions, in terms of the culture of sports and extreme sports, etc. So I think very hard about that, and very hands-on when it comes to recruiting, preparing, training, fundraising. We're always fundraising for a partner charity as well, and we have to make sure we hit our goals.
And when you also fundraise, you fundraise separately for having funds to go on expedition, right?
No, it's self-funded. So every woman pays for the cost of their own expedition. And on top of that, we have a team target. And then we raise funds through events, talks, through their networks. I have many ways that I can help them find, the funds to fundraise. We get very creative with how we bring a filmmaker. We do a film screening after. We've done photo exhibits, all sorts of events to also fundraise to get to our target.
Amazing. And when you go on this expedition, you go just to join them, or what is your role during this expedition? As a leader, or just as a member?
So I'm a team leader, definitely. I recruit the team, I choose the tour operator, I curate with the charity which program, which, the 50,000, 100,000, sometimes 150,000 if the team is bigger, goes to which specific program. I organize the calls. I mean, I have a team as well that works with me. I have a few project managers and many volunteers. But basically, yeah, and then I work with tour operators who are specialized in the area. So once we are on the ground, we defer to the guide, the lead guide, of course, in terms of leading the team. But in terms of general organization, well-being of the team, prep, equipment, and all that, I take very much a leadership role.
Yeah, that's amazing. And how do you see, where do you see your Beaufort Foundation in 15 years? Do you plan to expand everywhere, to have offices beside Asia?
Yeah, so my charitable work, if you will, as I said, is volunteer-based. We have been asked by people before who said, oh, I'd love to start, Women on a Mission in Dubai. And so some people have said that, but I noticed that in fact people say, but actually doing it is another story. So what we do is we decided to recruit partners in different parts of the world. And at the moment I'm leading the movement, but we then make sure that we assign certain responsibilities and hopefully it can branch off. The work that I do in terms of scaling my impact has been actually more around Investors for Climate, which is the other company I started almost 2 years ago. And this one, we're very focused on scaling it because I really noticed that philanthropy, of course, is important, and I'm going to continue to support this as long as possible. It is, for me, a charity is almost as important. It's the conscience of society in many ways. It can advocate for with the community. It can hold governments accountable, but a lot of times their business model is not very sustainable because we're depending on donations and grants. Mm-hmm. So I pivoted my career during the pandemic when I couldn't lead expeditions through work that I was doing in climate tech. And I realized that there was much more work to be done where investors are putting their money. And Singapore is a big hub of that. I realized that we have very deep pockets. We went from 150 family offices pre-pandemic to over 2,000 family offices here. So a lot of people are parking their money in Singapore. And I realized that if I want to continue to have more impact, I need to look at and broaden the conversation and also involve more men because a lot of investors are men. And so my Investors for Climate community, I would say 75% men, trying to bring more women in. But this is our opportunity to channel capital into solutions that tackle climate change through climate technologies and other innovations. So for-profit companies, startups, not necessarily just focusing on the nonprofit side. So my scaling power, if you will, or firepower is directed at Investors for Climate at the moment. So we're in 25 cities now, and we're hoping to be in 40 cities by the end of this year.
The Investors for Climate in 25 cities, you mean?
Yes, we have presence there. So we have an ambassador program that we launched about a year ago. We're only 2 years. We started as a group of friends in Singapore investing in climate. We started organizing events. My co-founder, who's a Swiss-Italian lady based in New York, she moved from Singapore to New York. So she's tackling more of the Americas. I'm looking at Asia Pacific, but then we have the European region, if you will, between us. And then we started interviewing people that were recommended to us who are climate investors in different cities. So we have 3 in Hong Kong and 2 in Sydney and 2 in Melbourne and 1 in New York, San Francisco. So we're in 25 cities as a presence, and these ambassadors have a mandate. They have a toolbox, they have a mandate, they have to bring the community together in those cities and organize events with 80% investors in the room with 20% founders in climate tech. And they have many models that they can do it as a bigger event, as a smaller roundtable discussion. There's no fixed rule on the size of the event. It's as long as we have a presence and we're active in that city, and that allows us to grow our network with the right people in place.
That is amazing.
Thank you.
And what about the projects? How do you select the project that you're trying to invest or support?
So the investment side is something new for us. So at first, as I said, we started as a group of friends. It was more around the events, but now we want to walk the talk, right? So we started investing through SPV, special purpose vehicles. It's not a fund, but what you do is you look at each investment as an independent, project. So what we've started to do is we have reached out to our network, where most of them are climate investors, either family offices, private equity, or venture capitalists in climate. And we've said, please recommend companies that you have invested in already because you believe in this company. So then we get a lot of deal flow. We've set up an investor committee with more experienced investors than us, who have been in the business for decades and decades. We look at the deal flow, then we select, the top 4 or 5. My co-founder and I interview them, and then when we're ready, we present them to the community, to the syndicate, and then we see who in the community is interested to come in as a small ticket investor through an SPV, because then you can come in, you can aggregate this capital and come onto the cap table of this company as Investors for Climate. But we have to first see if we have enough traction. We look at the data room together. We ask questions because there are many people with different different backgrounds in the room. And then we judge if, okay, this is something that at least, 20, 25 of the investors want to put money in. And then we decide, okay, let's go ahead and let's invest in it. So it's been a learning process, honestly. The first time we did it, we were just like, oh, this is not the right way to do it. Then every time you do this, you become smarter and better, and you listen and you learn. And so this is where we are at now. And so the deal flow is, we're not lacking in deal flow. Lots of deal flow is coming through in terms of opportunities. And then we are looking at 3 verticals, agri-tech, energy, and biodiversity protection, because looking at the data of our community, we see that those are the 3 focus.
Yeah, and I think environmental project or some of the companies very hard to raise the money, because even I made the film in Antarctica, and then I was invited. I was speaking and showing the film in the COP28 in Dubai. You know COP, right?
Yes, I was there actually at COP28. Yeah.
And after that, I saw many companies, they come there either to try to raise money or talk about their project. Even during the event, many people, yes, I'm interested, I was going to do it. But as you said, not many people actually to move to do it. So I see in the environmental sector, many people agree, but many people ended up doing nothing.
That's right. So action speaks louder than words. And I've really had that as my philosophy for a long time. I connect with a lot of people, but until you put, something on the ground, commit to an event, commit to, something to happen concretely, then it's just an idea, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. We was talking also with Minister Grace Fu here, and also about very big speech about the environment. And I think Singapore is amazing country as a leader in many green initiatives and biodiversity around the world. And I think it's a great spot that you choose to be here to lead people around the world to do that. Is definitely amazing. And question about the young generation. If you're saying that you're both of the foundation, you're not focusing on the specific age group, don't you think you need to bring more younger people, have younger generation?
So I have definitely arranged. We get requests all the time from young people. So the only challenge is obviously the funding of the trip, because it's self-funded. So when they're younger people, sometimes they have to ask for sponsors to help them. And our trips are actually not that expensive, unless we're looking at Antarctica, which is very expensive. But our trip to the Philippines was less than $2,000. It was $1,600 US just for the trip without the flight. So some of our trips are very accessible. And so we do get requests. I have about 250 women on my trekkers list. So anytime I have a trek, I just email, and then we get responses. And there are some students as well. So it's a real mix. I make sure that we have both, older people and younger people joining. But they need to be adults, just in terms of responsibility. So at least 18 years old is what I request.
Yeah. Because we're trying to bring more youth into the project, because those they're gonna do the change and lead us in 10, 20, 30 years. So I always asking people how they can inspire, or what would you recommend to people do more for the young generation to do some on daily basis to improve environment around them. It's always hard question, because
you're right. Yeah. And they need to connect with the person. So actually you made me think of one of the projects that's happening in June, which I've been invited to join Dr. Sylvia Earle on her expedition to the North Pole, to the Arctic. So Dr. Sylvia Earle, one of the leading oceanographers around the world, I've been actually trying to connect you to her and her team. I think they're open to having an interview, so we just have to find the time to do it. So she's celebrating her 90th birthday next June on her boat called the Sylvia Earle, and she's invited a lot of filmmakers actually. And so some of the people that she has invited are young teenagers, because she also realizes that if we're going to tell a story and we're going to film a documentary, it's no good filming all of us, adults in the room. We actually need to have the experience of witnessing the Arctic, seeing the polar bears, witnessing the melting of the ice, seen through the eyes of teenagers. And so actually my daughter has also been invited. She's 15, my youngest daughter, and she's going to be going. And I really am grateful for Sylvia Earle for having that, that view that we need to have the younger people speak on the behalf, because it is their future, and no better them to share the message that can connect with other younger people, right? And you're right, that's how we need to deliver the message.
And today, the young generation, they just sit on social media. And I think this very hard to get to them, because most of them just have attention span is very short.
That's true.
Like, how do you get message to them in 15, 30 seconds,
Yeah.
Because, when I made a documentary, it's very short. It's 12 minutes, the first one. I think it's very short, but even that, how I keep the people watching for 12 minutes.
Exactly.
And if I talk about 45 or 60 minutes, it's even harder.
So true. You have to keep it short and impactful. And I think one of the things that they're doing on the boat is actually workshops around photography and film. And there's going to be a few filmmakers. Actually, you should really be joining us.
When is happening?
It's happening on the 23rd of June. We're meeting in Oslo, in Norway, and then we take a flight up north to Svalbard. And then from there, we board the Sylvia Earle boat. I can send you more information about it, actually. Yeah, you can have a
And
look.
she doing it first time, or she have done that before?
Oh,
this
she's
kind
done it
of
many times. She's been traveling the world and she dives still, and she's going to be diving in the Arctic as well.
90
At
year
90.
old?
She still dives all the time. She's incredible.
Yeah,
She's like the female Jacques Cousteau,
Yeah, we need more impressive people like her.
I know. And then, she really still connects with younger people. That's the beauty of Sylvia Earle. She's all about hope. We had her come and speak at one of our events in New York last year during Climate Week. And honestly, I saw so many incredible speakers that week, and there were multiple events happening, even Clinton Foundation and the Earthshot Prize and all that. But for me, hearing Dr. Sylvia Earle speak at our event was the highlight because of the way she tells stories and the way she inspires hope. She's seen it all, she's seen how we've polluted the ocean, and it's so easy to be down and depressed about it. But she chooses to talk about those little areas of hope that she sees in her work, that little spark of change. She even told the story of the oysters that were brought back to New York, the New York Bay, that have been filtering the water in New York. And because we brought back oysters, it actually has improved the water quality so much. And that's a beautiful story. And she shared that, and the more you share these hopeful stories, the way you're doing as a filmmaker as well, the more you can influence people, inspire them to believe that there's still hope and it's still worth taking action, right? We can't give up.
Yeah, we still can do some, but problem, many people around us today, they see the problem, they turn their head around and leave, like they don't talk about it. And if you don't show problem, that's why the new documentary that I'm doing, we're trying to do in the 7 episodes, one per continent, to show. Because let's say you film something amazing here in Singapore, people in Brazil most likely never gonna see it, or people in Canada. But if it's part of the same episode of the same docu-series, they're gonna see it. You connect people around the world.
Absolutely.
And that's why the foundation like yours is amazing, because you're not focusing on the one region, you're working worldwide. And I think bringing a lot of people from different cultures and they exchanging knowledge and information, I think that's amazing.
Thank you very much. Yeah, one of the gifts for me has also the women that have come with me. I mentioned more than 200 now, but many have come back and brought their friends or their sisters. And for me, it's been a beautiful gift to get to know these women from all walks of life, all nationalities, races, and backgrounds, who have decided to be brave and embrace the challenge. I was just messaging on the South Africa chat just before coming on the way here, because I shared the press release with them and I put details about how tough the expedition is going to be. And one of them said, "Oh, I'm excited, but I'm a little bit nervous." And I said, "Yes, I think this one is going to be a very tough one," because, some of them are tougher than others. And one of our toughest one was in Greenland in 2020. But I said, this is going to be up there, with Greenland in terms of toughness, but, we'll be up for it. So there's a little bit of sometimes worry and fear, but that's the whole point. I'm trying to push them outside of their comfort zone because, we transform that way when we step out from what's comfortable.
And you're never afraid going this expedition?
I am. I actually get butterflies and I get a little bit scared, and I think a little bit of fear is healthy. It's just that it has to be calculated risk, because I'm also a mother and a wife, so I don't put myself unnecessarily in danger. I'm not an adrenaline junkie, but there's always a little element of me that says, "Oh, I hope I can do it. I hope I don't let my team down. I hope I'll be strong enough and have enough endurance to do what we're planning to do," because on top of that, I'm the team leader, right? And I do think it's healthy. And there's an expression that I heard recently about someone who said, when you're nervous, you have butterflies. And somebody said to them, "Get your butterflies in formation." And I think that's such a great comment. It's like, use that nervous energy and channel it and use it for, to push you forward. And I just love that. So I visualized it the other day and I thought, yeah, I'm going to get my butterflies in formation.
Yeah. And you have wrote a few books, right? What to inspire you to write about them?
So the writing journey has been interesting. So the first book I wrote was self-published about 12 years ago now. It was a book about post-pregnancy diet and fitness called The Smart Girl's Handbook to Being Mummylicious. And it's really, a handbook. I worked with a cartoonist. It was very much a conversational tone, speaking to a girlfriend about becoming a mom and getting your groove back when you have a baby, because, it has such a massive effect on your mental, physical, emotional state, and just sometimes how you lose track of your dreams and ambitions when you have a baby because you're so focused on everything else that's happening. And so for me, it was not easy to regain my groove, if you will, after the 4 kids. And so I wrote a little bit about that, and I enjoyed the writing experience. I've contributed to articles after that for my treks. Every time I came back, I would write a story about one of the trips, and lucky enough, it was published to different newspapers and magazines. And so I collected all that. And during the pandemic, when I couldn't travel, I looked at the folder of all my stories. And at the same time, I had a publisher approach me. I didn't look for it. Penguin wrote to me on LinkedIn. The head of Southeast Asia approached me and convinced me to write a book about leadership and life lessons from running these expeditions. So it took on and off a few months to decide how we would position the book. And then that's how I came out with Wild Wisdom, which is a collection of some of the expeditions and the lessons behind them. So I think writing for me was not something that I was necessarily looking to do, but I realized that it's a way of advocating, and to share your story again is important, and why you do it, and it can impact other people. And as an advocate for 2 nonprofits, and the causes that we support, writing and speaking have been a tool to share the story, like podcasts like today. These are important to share the message of why you do what you do, and bring people along and bring them in the community and in the journey. But writing is a powerful piece. It's a creative piece. And yeah, I'm happy to continue doing it. It's changed a lot now with ChatGPT, which I think is really interesting. And it's funny because I wrote my last book without AI, and I would imagine that now when you're a writer, there are different tools at your disposal. So it can be maybe easier to some extent, or maybe more difficult in others. I don't know. But yeah, writing is important, and it's a legacy as well.
Do you have many new books coming soon?
So I'm actually toying with the idea, and I haven't really put it out there yet, of a 3rd book. So I've only written 2 before. This is a 3rd one that I'm thinking about writing, more around the importance of sustainable investing, and also the role of AI and ethical AI in it, because I think that I would like to take a stand on the ethics of AI as I continue in my career, looking at I'm supporting climate tech initiatives. More and more, we're using AI in technology to help us scale, these solutions. But the ethics of AI can be also tied to the values that we have, and I think that's really important. So I've been pondering a little bit. I've written an outline. I haven't really decided if I want to write another book, but I definitely have something to say about it. So we'll see. It's something that I'm thinking about.
That sounds amazing. And how do you manage all between being mother of the 4 kids and go on the expeditions and writing and everything?
Oh, Artem, that's such a great question. And honestly, today I was rushing, as you know, because there's so many things happening. So first of all, I try to be as organized as I can. You may have seen through how I reply to emails and all that. I'm quite hands-on with a lot of things I do. So I have a scheduling system that I've used. Even I look at my year, and I actually plan my year quite carefully and the themes that I want to focus on. And then that way, when I look at my week and my day, I try to make sure that, I respond, that I'm not absent. The only time I don't respond is because I have no Wi-Fi if I'm trekking. And you're right, there's a lot of things going on. I have I have 4 companies, basically, 2 nonprofits, a consultancy practice, and Investors for Climate. I have 6 board roles,
Oh, wow.
3 nonprofit, 3 for-profit. But they're all aligned in some way, so they're not completely different. They're all around climate, investing, and women's empowerment. They're kind of connected in that sense. So wherever I can, I try to make sure that I am aligned with what I care about. So I won't accept an interview or an opportunity if it doesn't align with what I'm trying to do. So in a way, it's connected, right? And if you enjoy what you do, as I'm sure you do, you find a lot of energy. It's not really a chore, right? It's not work. And so I'm energized. I love working on all the initiatives. Every day is different. I never have to motivate myself. I just love doing it. I just wish I had more hours in the day. That's kind of how I feel. I'm sure you sometimes feel that way,
Most of the
right?
time,
when you
yeah.
enjoy what you do. And the kids are bigger now, so a little bit more independent. My husband's super cool. He's an entrepreneur. He's very supportive. We just did schedules yesterday. Like, this is my schedule this year. He's like, it's a little bit intense, but he understands, and a lot of the work I do is also supporting my charity partners. It makes me happy. It has a positive mission. It has an impact. So I think as long as I'm not wasting my time, away from the family, he understands. And the kids are also proud, and they get involved. Like in Paris, I'm in Paris next week for Change Now, and then we're running an event with Investors for Climate. So my 2 older kids who live in London are coming over and helping me with the event. So one is going to do the interviews with the speakers, and one is going to be helping me with social media and some of the reception of the guests. And so yeah, so they get involved. They help me anytime, you
They
know.
become a family business. They join in supporting the.
They support where they can. My eldest daughter is working at the Financial Times, so she's got a full time job. Malcolm is finishing university, and he has a job lined up. So they're also busy with everything. But wherever we can, and same with my charity events, you know, the kids will come in and help, and then, you know, I think they understand if you involve them a little bit. You know, they understand more why mommy's away or why mommy's so busy. You know.
And you've been invited to many podcasts and interviews. How do you select them? Which one you say no, or which one you go?
It's a good question, and it's true that, well, sometimes, you know what I do, if I first of all, I'll of course choose the ones like yours that are super interesting, that have a connection to the UN. I mean, come on, you know, it was wonderful getting that invitation, and, you know, having checked you out, your credentials, etc. So I do my DD, you know, my due diligence, of course. And sometimes if I really don't have time, or I've done too many, then I will gift it to another friend, a girlfriend, and then say and recommend somebody else, because I have a lot of great women in my community, and I want to elevate others too. I don't need to do all the interviews, right? So sometimes I will just say, well, you know, I actually have somebody else because I've been doing a lot of podcasts. Why don't you interview this person? And so, you know, that's nice because you don't have to do them all, right? You know.
And when we're selecting people, you recommended quite a few people.
Yes.
And when you recommend somebody, what the first thing you think about they have done to be on the project?
Yeah. So first of all, I tried to understand what you were trying to do with Faces of Impact, right? And the caliber of the people you were looking for was quite high, I felt, you know, and obviously the association with the UN in New York, you know, that's very prestigious. So I really thought, okay, so who's high level in this space? You know, who are the women that I'm mostly women, you know. I mean, I know a lot of men too who are very impressive, but of course, because of the work I do, especially for the many, you know, past 13 years, I'm very female focused, you know. But not only, as you know, I just said with Investors for Climate, most of my community are actually men, and so yeah, so I thought about who are the women that I look up to, you know, really, who are the leaders out there that I look up to, and there are really quite a few that I thought of right away.
And who would be the top three inspiration for you?
For women, yeah. Well, there's quite a few. So definitely Jacinda Ardern. I think I put Julia in touch with someone there, is somebody that I look up to for her courage and leadership. And I actually met her a couple times. One in Singapore when she was here for a speaking engagement. And also I saw her in New York during Climate Week at the Earthshot Prize. She's on the advisory board. And
I was right there too.
Oh, were you there too?
Yeah.
With Michael Bloomberg speaking at the Plaza Hotel? They had an event at the Plaza. That's the event I'm talking about. So I bumped into her again, had a chat, and so I love, you know, her courage and how eloquent she is as well. You know, and everything she's done with her career. I know it's not been an easy time. She took the leadership during COVID for New Zealand. You know, so she's definitely one that I'd love to meet. I mean, I've already met quite a few. Jane Goodall and Dr. Sylvia Earle, who I love and admire. Minister Grace Fu, of course, is super inspiring. I'd love to meet Angelina Jolie. Actually, I respect her as an actor, as a director, and also for the charity work that she's done with the UN around the world with the refugees. So I'd love to meet her. I'd like to meet Queen Rania of Jordan as well. She's a mother of four as well, and she has done a lot of work with refugees too in her country. You know, because Jordan has been a country that has taken in a lot of refugees from Gaza and all that. And we almost had a chance to meet her because we did a trek once in Jordan, but the timing didn't work out. So there's definitely a few women out there that I'd love to meet, you know. So yeah, Artem, please introduce if you get to meet them and talk to them.
Yeah, I think it's very important to choose your idol when you are not just young age, but an older age as well, because many people choose the wrong one in their young age and they goes wrong. That's why we trying to create something that people look at and get inspired, they get motivated, they get education. Because nowadays we have a lot of content on internet and YouTube, but it's not much of stuff that people can just see and get inspired, because we have a lot of singers, rappers, mainly if you live in US, the internet is just polluted.
Okay, yeah.
So like that's why we're trying to create these interviews to show more for the people, you know.
That's wonderful.
Inspiring work. And talking about the Faces of Impact, how do you think from your perspective we could improve and make it bigger impact on the people with what we're trying to do? Because we're trying to bring not just people together on interviews or on the list, trying to connect them, because you could help somebody on the list, they could help
That's a
you, you know,
great
to
idea.
create an actual impact around the world.
Yeah, that's a great idea, actually. So I guess, you're starting to get all the interviews right and the photos, and one of the ideas would be to make it a moving expo. So after New York, because not, as you said, not everybody can make it to New York. Maybe one of the ideas would be to have it travel and have it shown in other cities. So that way you could also connect, with a broader audience, tell the story they could read. I'm sure you're going to put some information about each person. And so that could be one way to do it. Of course, we'd love to connect with the other people that you're focusing on for this expo, and I know you're trying to get together in person in New York for a dinner, but as you said, not everybody will be there. So maybe through a digital platform or an app or maybe even a WhatsApp group, if they agree, that would be
They're
fantastic.
actually planning to create a club.
Oh, nice.
There would be members
Yeah.
club that's for the Faces of Impact people.
That sounds wonderful. Yeah, and then that the way you can, grow the movement. I think that would be fantastic.
And also for the next year, we're actually planning to do is going to be 5 continents.
Okay.
So we're going to have Faces of Impact on each continent.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
we're going to have selected 100 people on each continent.
Okay.
And the top 20 goes to the main one.
Wonderful. Perfect.
That way we have more people and more reach on each continent, because some of the people, as you say, may not able to travel. Some of
Yes.
them may not be able to join in the main event,
Yes.
but they still can be locally, because for us, it doesn't matter. We're not based on the net worth or
Yeah.
age or anything. It's depend how much you do impact locally on your community or globally on the people,
It's a good idea. I'm happy to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely coming more soon. And also I heard a lot about your other interviews. You talk a lot about the human trafficking. And we have been talking with other people about that as
Yes.
well. How do your perspective on the global scale, what else we can do about that?
Yeah. So we have a few charity partners that focus on that, and actually, I was just emailing one of them, UNHCR, because I'm hosting a special lunch at my home at the end of May, and I was inviting some of my community, to come and support. So one of the key areas that we've been trying to fund through our expedition has been education, because education is a way to stop human trafficking before it starts. Like it goes beyond the problem before it becomes really an issue. So we've supported multiple programs, including in Cambodia with different schools that offer education to young women who are from poor families, so that they get an education and a guaranteed job after. And when you offer a guaranteed job that is able to support a whole family back home and keeps them a bit safe from the dangers of getting into the human trafficking side. Another charity partner of ours is the International Justice Mission, IJM. So we've funded different programs. But the way I do it is that I take women on trips to see the work of this charity on the ground. So we've taken women to see the work that they do in the Philippines, in Manila and Cebu, because IJM actually rescues children from online sexual abuse. The Philippines is the epicenter.
Oh, wow.
So there are many ways, human trafficking touches many people, children, women, even men, who are on shipping boats where their passport is removed, the men who work on the maritime kind of industry where there's no regulation of what happens to their passport. That's a form of human trafficking as well. And so I think education is one tool where you can definitely offer education to young people so that they get chance at different careers and it doesn't get them into the hands of the traffickers, because when they're vulnerable is that when they get caught. And so you can fund different projects. This is what we're trying to do, and educate more people about being aware. There's so many ways to do it, but it's a massive problem. It really is. And it's one of the areas that we're working on with Women on a Mission in particular.
Yeah, I think even a country that has a good education, I would say about the United States. Miami, where I'm based, is one of the known as the capital of the human traffic of US.
Yeah.
And the education, I don't think is a bad education problem there. There might be other issue or financial or anything else. And I don't know, how do you educate people enough to prevent that?
And many countries are actually transit locations for human trafficking we don't even realize it. Like if you allow certain trade of people and passports here, even in Singapore, when you bring in domestic workers, the agents take their passport. That's a form of human trafficking, the removal of rights, So human trafficking is actually a gray area that many countries, sometimes unknowingly, are allowing to happen in their own country. So that's why the education piece is important. NGOs, as I said, are the conscience of society. So there are NGOs that really focus on that, to lobby with governments, to tighten policy, to tighten immigration laws, to do background checks on people who are coming in that are setting up businesses, because it really impacts even the hotel business. You need to do checks on how are they bringing in people to work in their hotels, so there are a lot of good work being done that's why we need nonprofits, we need corporates to be responsible, and then we need policy and government to come in and be transparent about, how it's happening in each of those countries. But
Because many governments just close their eyes on that.
no, yeah, exactly.
And many big corporations that think about the money, and
Yes.
they'll have just people like you that trying to do something, and that's
Yeah,
why
we
I
have to
think
keep trying. Yeah. There is a lot of evil in the world, but there's also a lot of good, and that's my view. And so I choose to focus on the good that we can do and the impact that we can have. And that's the only way that I stay sane in the face of the stress that I feel. Because I also get eco anxiety. I have 4 children, right? So I worry about the planet and what's going to happen to them when they grow up and when the level of the water rises, because it's not even when, it's if. It's not even if, it's when, sorry. But for me, taking action and focusing on the pockets of hope and the people that are doing the good work is the only way to go, because we can easily fall into the trap of looking at the evil that is being done. And there is a lot being done. The greed and the evil is there, But there's still so much good to be done. And a lot of people are doing good. A lot of courageous people are doing good. And so I think we just try to focus on that. That's how I operate.
yeah, and in the climate change, I think it's hard because many people just don't believe in it.
Yeah.
But shifting 1-2 degrees is huge impact.
Yes.
Like one of the actual co-producers on my film that we made in Antarctica, he's from Pakistan. And a few years ago, Pakistan had one of the biggest floods.
Yeah.
There was 23% of people misplaced. It was over 15 million people. And it's just few degrees shift.
Yeah.
But if you talk more degrees shift, Antarctica started melting, and the rest of the world will be affected.
That's right.
I think many people doesn't think about that until it's got to their home, and it's too late.
Yeah. No, I mean, Greenland, if the Greenland ice sheet melts and Antarctica ice sheet melts, we'll have almost 60 to 70 meters of water, increase. That's like half of the world already in trouble. But the question is, we don't know when that's going to happen, because there are many scenarios out there, right? So in the meantime, what we can do is we reduce the heating of the planet. So that's where we can look at technologies, because, just, putting the responsibility on consumers to stop flying and to stop, using the aircon, it's still good, but it's not enough, right? It has to be big corporations. 90% of the emissions are just done by a handful of big companies around the world, are the ones producing the most emissions. They're like 80 companies around the world are the ones producing 90% of the emissions. And so those are the companies that we really need to look at, because of the heat that they're putting out into the world.
But the question, how do you get to them to listen?
Policy, advocacy, NGOs, it's a multi-pronged approach. There's not one solution, because it's a complex problem. So all of us making an effort, advocating, you through your podcast, raising awareness, people in finance, in only investing in sustainable companies, people in government trying to do the right thing. So it takes multiple people doing efforts, young people protesting in the street just to raise awareness. All these things coming together can hopefully slowly move the needle.
Yeah, some governments, they actually doing opposite. What I just saw in the news was, I think, a couple of weeks ago, the Brazil COP30 going to be hosted in Brazil.
Yes.
And they just cut it 8 kilometers
That's
of
right.
the Amazon rainforest just to build
To
a better
build that.
road for the climate change conference.
I know.
How
I heard
pathetic is that?
Yeah.
And I think many countries like that, they're doing around the world, just people don't share it in the news. I think the only is made to the news because they did it for the climate conference.
Yeah.
And like same, I was talking to Minister Grace Fu. The problem is many governments and many ministers are like, oh, it's your problem. No, it's your problem. This is your minister's problem. And they end up doing nothing. And a big corporation doesn't care, many of them.
Yeah.
Like getting to the right people is very hard. So I think that's a very tricky question.
Yes, it is.
To do it. So talking about all the travels you did, which one do you remember the most and why? And how they change you?
So many trips, right? And they're all unique. We don't repeat the trip. It's been almost 25 expeditions now. I would say, okay, the first one, of course, was very impactful because it was transformational. Our first trek was to Everest Base Camp, which is a 14-day trip, 9 days up, 3 days down, quite tough at up to 5,400 meters. I don't know if you've ever trekked in the Himalayas, Artem, but the altitude really hits you as you start at 2,800 meters. And for us, because it was the first one, for me personally, it really changed me, and it was the beginning of how Women on a Mission was born, because through that trek, I wrote a press release that said Women on a Mission to Reach Higher Ground, like a play on words. And then my sister did our first logo. She's a designer in New York. And then I set up the Facebook page at the time, and then people started writing to us, and then we got interviewed in the radio here, and somebody wrote something in the Straits Times of Singapore. And it just started like that, So that will always remain in my heart as one of the most special one. And it was a tough expedition. We arrived at the base camp, and we had brought one bottle of champagne, mom champagne, and everybody was teary and celebrating. And yeah, and a couple of the girls had to have oxygen at the last stop because they were suffering from altitude sickness, which is very serious. Another one I would say, which culturally was probably one of the richest experiences, was traveling in Siberia with Nenets reindeer herders. That was in 2015. We went in December, so winter time. Temperatures were very, very cold. And we were migrating with a group of reindeer herders called the Nenets. So they look like Eurasian, they have these Asian features, light eyes, and they're part of a group of people that have been doing this for thousands of years. So they take their 10,000 reindeer and they migrate south during the winter months. As winter comes, they bring the herd south so that the reindeer can find more food to eat because it's too cold up north of the Ob River. So they come down from Salekhar all the way down. So we followed that migration for a week, and it was an incredible experience. So we were living in their chooms. We were dressing like them with reindeer fur, with reindeer boots. We even tried what they eat. So they eat two things, frozen fish from the river, and they also eat raw reindeer blood.
Oh, wow.
Because that's how they get their vitamins and minerals. So we also, including one vegetarian in the team, out of politeness, we, of course, when they killed reindeer, we were offered the blood and the raw kidney, and we all tasted it. And I have a video, and it was quite an experience. But just learning about how they care for each other in the face of such harsh climate, and they have an interesting relationship with the Russian government too, because they have to send their children at 7 years old to go to public school, so they have to send them to a boarding school, otherwise they cannot continue their migration. So that was probably one of the most culturally enriching. But there have been so many. Central Asia is fascinating. We were in Kyrgyzstan recently. Mongolia is one of my favorite places in the world. So I actually
Mine too.
Oh, you too.
Yeah, I spent there 1 month, and definitely I think that was not enough time to be
It's
there.
the best. So Mongolia is the only country where I went twice, 2 expeditions, but 2 different areas. The Gobi Desert with one, which on the top of Bactrian camels, the camels with the long hair. And the other one was in the Altai Mountains near Kazakhstan, where they have the eagle hunters. And actually, we want to go to another part, maybe next year, near the Russian border, very, very northern part of Mongolia. There's a beautiful lake that we're looking at, and that would be a ice skating kind of across the lake experience. We've never done ice skating, so that could be quite fun. Ethiopia was also very interesting. We went to the Danakil Depression, which is a very moon-like and alien landscape in fluorescent sulfuric colors. The Iran was incredible too. The Persian people are really kind and beautiful people.
Yeah, I spent 1 month there as well.
See,
and
we have similar taste.
I agree.
Yeah.
I even did a tattoo in their original language. There's a very famous saying, "This too shall pass."
Oh.
And I put on my arm in their
I love
official
Iran.
language.
Yeah, I love Iran and the Persians. They're the most generous, kindest people in the world. And we had this beautiful expedition in their desert called the Lut Desert. We walked across the Lut Desert, 200 kilometers,
Oh, wow.
7 days. It was quite an experience. And the heart of the Lut is a beautiful crater formed by a meteorite, maybe millions of years ago. These trips have been truly enriching and have been transforming me in so many ways. Just learning about yourself, as you know, when you travel, what you learn the most is about yourself, I think, and of course about the culture of the people. But you have such deep reflections about how insignificant we are in the face of such beauty.
And how do you think those trips change in the other women that join with you?
So I've seen a lot of different, of course, reactions. So some of our teammates have never trekked before or slept in a tent. That actually, still exists. So some of them are really beginners, and it takes a lot of courage for them to do this. And then others are very experienced and are even, triathletes and very, very fit. So we really have a range, right? But I have seen over the years, now it's been, 13 years that I've taken women on expeditions, a very positive change. For the most part, it's always been positive, meaning that, they take courage. Even fundraising is empowering to see that your friends and community will support your fundraising because they believe in you, because you're not fundraising for yourself or for your trip, but you're fundraising for a cause and a charity that's well established. And to see that support is also empowering. But the trek itself is a physical and mental and emotional challenge, every time in different ways. And so what I notice is that when women come back from these trips, and I also feel that, we come back even more grateful for everything that we have, the families that we have, the health, the fact that we have a roof and a safe place to live. I mean, we know that's not the case everywhere. So there's a big sense of gratitude. And honestly, I feel that women walk back a little bit taller, a little bit more proud, a little bit more confident. And for me, that's really beautiful to see, because you're proud of something that you're part of that's bigger than you. This mission is not about the team. And that's why sometimes, despite the differences in personalities, because you can imagine 12 women in a team on a mountain, there's a lot of emotions. But because there's a bigger mission, it tends to make everybody gel better. And there's real bonds of friendship that are formed. And it's beautiful to see.
So most of them stay in touch after that.
Still stay in touch. We have all the WhatsApp chats of all these expeditions. They're all over the world. And so we still get messages, oh, happy birthday, or I bumped into so-and-so, I had lunch with her, they share a picture. And it's really, good to see that, because that means that we will be friends for life.
You're connecting people not just for the short period of time, you're connecting them for the lifetime.
I have a long-term view on that,
That's amazing.
Thank you, Artem.
I hope you have much more to come from that, and excited to see what you have more. Thank you so much for coming to Face of Impact.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure, Artem. Lovely to meet you finally.
Thank you so much.